Hi, I'm Bob Nystrom.
Hi, this is Bo Dietl.
Hey, this is Rich Big Daddy Salgado.
Hi, this is Don Goodney, and you're watching Sports Biz.
Sports Biz.
Sports Biz with LD. Sports fans, this is Sports Biz with LD.
Welcome to Sports Biz with LD. I'm your host, Larry Davis. Brought to you by the Rampart Insurance Group, dailyblue.com, sportsbizwithld.com. Like me on Facebook, sportsbizwithld.com. No, not .com, on the Facebook. And tweet me, sportsbizwithld. We also have a new sponsor, 388. The name is 388 and the address, 388 Willis Avenue in beautiful Roslyn, New York, on the North Shore. Good friend of the show, Matthew Sorrentino. Matty, who's the owner, love that he's involved. Again, so much to get off my chest. What else is new? So much going on in the world of sports. I guess we'll have to start with the New York Knickerbockers right here in New York. They finally hired a coach. Phil Jackson hires a coach before he's got to go to his son's wedding in Turkey. He had said that's what is important to him, make sure he has a coach in place. My thought process was if he offered the 26th coach in NBA and for the New York Knicks since they've been in the NBA, Derek Fisher, I believe if he offered Derek Fisher the same amount of money to Steve Kerr, right after him, 5 years, $25 million, would have had Steve Kerr here. That's my thought. I think if he would have strike quick, went after Steve Kerr, not gave Steve Kerr a little bit thinking, yes, no, Golden State job might open up. That's what I think happened. He didn't do it that way. We have some clips. Let's go to Derek Fisher. I think this question was, Derek, what's it like, accepting the position and the feel about being the coach of the New York Knicks?
I think preparing myself for this moment and being the head coach of an NBA basketball team is something that started at 6 years old. I played my first game of organized basketball when I was 6 years old. And although I was one of the better kids on that team, I have very rarely been the best player, the most talented, the tallest, the highest jumping, the best shooter on a basketball team. And so right away as a young person, I immediately had to start thinking about the game of basketball and how it was played and where I could find my advantages and how I could be most effective, even though I wasn't physically the most gifted or talented.
I mean, basically, you hear Derek Fisher, the new coach of the Knicks, saying how he became a winner. Wasn't the tallest, wasn't the best, and he doesn't win 5 championships by luck. He was a starting point guard on a lot of those teams with Phil Jackson, played with Phil Jackson for 9 years. So Phil Jackson's whole thing about the triangle offense, pretty much Derek Fisher has down pat. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about. The other thing I like about the Derek Fisher hire is he was the NBA Players Union president. Again, you need to lead people. The X and O's, I don't think it's about that anymore. Guys play so much basketball in their lives. The X and O's they've seen. It's leadership, management, coaching. That's what the business is about of sports. Being just like you and I, whether we're running a business or not, is leading people. Let's hear what Derek Fisher had to say about, of course, being with the Zen master himself, Phil Jackson.
Phil's presence here, put me in a position where making a quicker decision about what would be next, for me and for my family and life, that was a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not want to go with Phil Jackson? And, of course, he had to speak to his family because he was a left coast guy. He was always on the West Coast. But he came here. His daughter had some very rare eye there was something wrong with her eye, and he had to come here a lot to see these special eye surgeons here. And again, like I just said, being the president of the NBA Players Union, he was in New York. Everything goes on here, so he came here. And I'm sure on road trips to New York, started getting the feel and the love of being in New York. I think I heard him, quoted, when he first came to New York, many years ago when he got in the league, he just stayed in his hotel room. He was afraid to go out, which you hear a lot of people say, I guess, when they come from small towns throughout the country. Let's hear now what he also says. Let's hear a little bit more on Phil, and then I think after that he's going to ask a great question straight up, which I love about a New York writer asking about Carmelo, but I think it's a little bit more on Phil.
Not just the idea of working together as basketball people and trying to make the team what it can be, but the idea that even if Phil and I did not have history together, the opportunity to work with and learn from one of the greatest basketball coaches and basketball minds that we've ever seen. As a basketball person, that's an opportunity that is worth pursuing, worth exploring. And so right away I had to consider that piece of it.
Of course. I mean, it's the Zen Master. He's Phil Jackson. How would you not want to be with him? It's a no-brainer. Okay? And if somebody's going to say, well, Phil's going to be watching over and every move you make, yeah, so why wouldn't I want his input? Why would I think that I'm the guy? I've never had any coaching experience, even though, as a way, a point guard is a coach on the floor, and Derek Fisher always in the huddles. I'm sure head coaches would always ask him his opinion, and other players would as well. I like the choice. Again, wanted Steve Kerr first. Doesn't mean always the first choice is the right choice. Plenty of trades in sports that didn't happen ended up being a good non-trade. Now, one of the writers, and this I liked, I'm not sure which writer it was, straight up said Derek Fisher, are you going to be able to get Carmelo to come and stay with the New York Knicks?
That's I guess, a good question, but one that I don't have the answer to. Only Carmelo can answer that question, and that's a big part of not only who I am as a person and have been as a player, but who I'll be as a coach. Is that ultimately the decision to be great, to be a part of something special, to want to be the best that you can be, is ultimately your choice. Carmelo's in a position as a player where that's his choice, and I can speak from experience that as a player, free agency is something that you want to experience, you enjoy the process, but you ultimately, make a choice that you feel like is best for you and your family or those people involved.
Of course, Carmelo's going to make decisions what's best for him and his family. And it's interesting that Derek Fisher said, it's interesting to be part of the free agent wooing. Like Carmelo had said, he wants to be a part of that. He wants teams to see how everyone loves him. Every team is going to want Carmelo. But the bottom line is, in the NBA, it's all about salary cap. Can you fit him in? So that's the difference for Carmelo. So I don't know how many teams are going to wine and dine Carmelo because they can't fit him in their salary cap anyhow. And I do love that, Derek Fisher, and I think we're going to hear this on the comments that we got from Phil Jackson about using the championship rings. Let's see what Phil Jackson's response was about him hiring Derek Fisher to be the 26th coach of the New York Knicks.
The only thing I worried about with Derek was the immediacy of playing such intense basketball where it's all-consuming in the finals of the Western Conference, and then having little time to decompress and to think it through. So we allowed some time, resumed talks after I initially told him my interest, and then got to business. And he felt that that after going through this season particularly, he was able to kind of decompress a little bit from the tensions and the energy that a playoffs requires.
Well, that's interesting. Oklahoma City, where Derek Fisher was with, filed tampering charges against Phil Jackson with the NBA. And basically, it sounds like Phil said he brought up the Western Conference Finals and then said resume talks with Derek. That does sound like Phil reached out to Derek Fisher while he was still playing for Oklahoma City. So let's get to that for a second. Big deal. Who cares? So what are you going to do, Oklahoma City? So he talked to him while he was in the playoffs. What do you think? It distracted him? Derek Fisher was retiring anyhow. And again, the fine would be what? 25 grand, 50 grand, which is not going to change anyone's life in the NBA. They're all multi-millionaires. But it does sound like Phil did say, without realizing it, that he did speak to Derek Fisher while he was in the Western Conference Finals with Oklahoma City when they lost to San Antonio. Let's hear more from Phil Jackson about Derek Fisher, and maybe he did bring up Steve Kerr in this clip. I don't remember, but let's hear more from the great Phil Jackson.
And the leadership that he showed in that phase was remarkable, and I think that the players all appreciate that, and I think that's what they'll remember.
What he said. Okay, so that's what Phil had to say about that. And now I think that we have Steve Mills, the GM of the Knicks, who was sitting right beside them. So you had on the left Steve Mills, you had in the middle Derek Fisher, and then on the right you had the Zen Master himself, Phil Jackson. Let's go to Steve Mills' comments, because I think he jumps in to make a comment about, I think it was about Carmelo.
It matters. Hopefully it will matter with Carmelo, but we've been in this business and we've been in the process of going after players before. And I know having these two guys and their championship pedigree will make a difference when we go out and start talking to players about being part of what we're trying to build.
Well, you know, Phil had mentioned earlier, I'll get to Steve Mills in a second, about that Derek Fisher should take his 5 world championship rings, put them on the table, and say to Carmelo, you want to be a part of this? I'm Phil Jackson. You bring your 13. Okay? So now you got 18 rings on the table, because that's how Pat Riley supposedly wooed LeBron. Showed him all his championship rings. Said, you want to be a part of this? You want to be a part of people who know how to win, because that's what it's all about. These guys make tons of money. But on the other hand, how much do you take off the table? You know, there are rumors flying around now that the Miami Heat is trying to figure out a way to how to get Carmelo to add to their big 3 of Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, and get him there. That means all 3 of those guys would have to opt out of their contracts and all take a pay cut. And Carmelo would have to take a pay cut. Now, I'm not saying they might not take pay cuts, but it's how much of a pay cut. If I make them $20 million a year and you say take 18 and you got a chance to play with all these other guys, yeah. You tell me I can make $20 million a year and I'm going to take 15 or less, I don't know if that's happening. But again, it's all about the salary cap. So how many teams really can Carmelo go to? There was talk Houston. There was talk LA. LA came out and said they're probably not interested. But then again, when someone says they're not interested, doesn't that mean they are? That's Nick Land. But like I said earlier, I believe if Phil Jackson offered Steve Kerr right off the bat, 5 years, $25 million, he'd be the Knick coach. Because Dolan jumped in and didn't like it. And that doesn't sound like Dolan, but that's what I've heard. Because usually Dolan's like, don't worry about the money, spend the money. But that's not what happened here. They tried to lowball Steve Kerr a little bit. They ended up giving Derek Fisher that kind of money that I think Steve Kerr would have taken. And let's not forget also the other coaches did that too. You got Jason Kidd, who's with the Nets, ended up having a good year. They lost in the second round to the Heat. I think they ended up at 44-38, and they were terrible. They were 10, 12 games under 500 during the year. Held it together, J. Kidd. So you had him and Mark Jackson. You know, Mark Jackson, his first year with Golden State, did not do well. Last year did well. He had a lot of talent there. That's one of the reasons I think Steve Kerr went to Golden State, was the talent. But the main thing is, like I said, I think that if the Knicks and Phil Jackson, 5 years, 25, they would have had Steve Kerr. Moving on, let's talk a little about the NBA Finals since we're talking in NBA mode. I mean, as of last night, San Antonio again beats the Heat resoundingly in Miami. In Miami. They have a commanding 3-1 lead, and I got to say, where was LeBron? These last 2 games, I have not seen the LeBron we're all used to, and especially in NBA Finals when he's got to come down the court and take the ball. That's it. Give me the ball or don't give up the ball. That's what LeBron's got to do. Yes, he's got Bosh. Yes, he's got Dwayne Wade. And, Bosh in one of those games was 4 for 4, and they didn't find him towards the end of the game. That's a LeBron thing. To me, it's all LeBron. He's got to be the guy. You got Tim Duncan at 37 years old, averaging almost 18 points a game and 10 rebounds a game. Timmy Duncan has to be, in all of sports, the most unsung superstar in the last 10 to 12 years. All Timmy does is win. You don't see him complain. He's there every game, day in and day out. And all he does is win. All he does is win. LeBron James averaging 27, 7, and 4. Still, it's great LeBron James numbers. Wade averaging 18. Bosh putting down about 15. But LeBron in those part of the games got to take over. Mario Chalmers, who's a starter, not doing anything. And I think he's a free agent this year, and he's hurting them as well. Because when he's one of those bit parts on that team, you need him. And I got to tell you, where's Ray Allen? I didn't even mention Ray Allen in the big three. Where is Ray Allen? Because Ray Allen hit that big shot in Game 6 in the corner. If Ray Allen doesn't hit that shot, San Antonio wins last year. So now the Heat are down 1-3. They need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quick. Because if San Antonio just plays their team game the way they played the last two, because the opening game, if you recall, the air conditioning wasn't working. LeBron went out with 5 minutes left. That's part of their win. Let's not kid ourselves here. But if they play the last two games the way they played, and Miami does not show up, I got to tell you, San Antonio is going to win that title again, and that'll be the sixth title for the great Tim Duncan. Wow. No one talks about him with MJ, but what about Tim Duncan? I mean, quietly, that's a superstar. And then to finish with the NBA, and I know everybody keeps saying we got to stop talking about, but we got to go back and talk about Donald Sterling, LA Clippers. After his wife Shelly makes a deal, and we talked about it on the show, does a $2 billion deal with Steve Ballmer. He comes back, Donald, after he supposedly agreed, but again, you could talk all you want. You don't have it on the dotted line, it doesn't mean anything. And he said no. He doesn't like the fine, $2.5 million fine. I mean, I think it's more just, how dare you fine me? And he's not happy that he's going to be banned from life from the NBA. What does that mean? Does it mean he just wants to go watch NBA games and be in stadiums and get people yelling and screaming and abusing him? Does he really want that? I don't know. But he's also hired private detectives to find out dirt on other NBA owners. You know, they need 2/3 of the vote of the NBA owners to get him out. So he's looking to find that other third, or more than a third, who he'll have dirt on, this is my take, that he'll have dirt on and say, listen, you don't vote for me, I'm going to expose what you did here. Because all these guys are getting great PR firms, like probably the Daily Blue, great PR firm like Daily Blue, who can hide stuff or pay people off. That's how they hide all the skeletons in their closet. So that's what he's looking to do, Donald. And you know something? Adam Silver, the new commissioner, didn't expect this to happen in his first few months, and he's got a problem on his hand because Donald is not going quietly. Sterling is suing the NBA for $1 billion, called the league despicable monsters and bullies. Pot calling the kettle black? Who knows what's going to happen here? He had initially, like I said, given his blessing, and now he's not. He's also been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. What that's going to mean here, I'm not sure, but this is not going to end. And it doesn't look like it's going to end pretty when you're dealing with a guy like Donald Sterling or any of these guys who are worth billions, and he's in his 80s. What's left? He doesn't care. He's not thinking about legacy. He's thinking about winning, because that's what he wants to do. And winning a lawsuit to him is the final win, because his paper clips, the LA Clippers, never won a title. Let's move on to the Rangers. Let's move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Just so happens the Rangers here in New York are in it. Rangers stave off elimination with a 2-1 victory the other night. The King, Henrik Lundqvist, makes 40 saves. But 2 of those saves got behind him. And the puck, just so everyone will know, has to go fully over the red line in the crease, not just a piece. So that's why they were not goals. So those pucks did get behind Lundqvist. So did he save them? Technically, yes, but in reality, no, they got behind him. But they did not go in the net. And in that third period, the Kings went an onslaught. I mean, you can't stop this team. They're just so much better, you see, when you watch this game in the Rangers. But all these games have been close, except the 3-0 shutout in Game 3 at Madison Square Garden. The other first 2 games were overtime. Rangers could have won with less talent, and they did not. Then this game, the King stops 40 shots. Rangers win 2-1. But, you know, I got a little problem with the King in the series, and I know no one's going to agree with this, but this is my thought. The King 3 times had 2-goal leads, and didn't hold court. Now, I know you're going to say some of those goals, how could they be stopped? That's what great saves are all about. The Rangers would not be in the finals if not for that unbelievable great save, Game 7 against the Canadiens when the Rangers won 1-0. You remember that. Everybody does. That was an unbelievable save, a great save. That's what great saves are all about. Spectacular saves are all about. 3 times, up 2-goal lead. You got to hold court, man. You got to hold that, King. So, yeah, is it hard to diss the King? 100% it's hard to diss the King. But that's the great goaltending. Without great goaltending, you do not win the Stanley Cup. You make it to the Stanley Cup Finals because there's plenty of goalies over the years who've been a hot goaltender and taken their teams to the finals, but have not won. And after the game, unfortunately, we weren't able to get the clips. And just earlier today, just so we know, on the show, those clips are sponsored by the MSG Network. Thanks to them for the Phil Jackson and the Derek Fisher and the Steve Mills clips. This also would have been the NBC, but we didn't get them. We weren't able to get them. But after the game, on the ice, they interviewed the King. And Lundqvist, you know, was interesting. He used the word luck. Like he said, there was a little luck in there with those pucks. And he said that the Rangers came into that game, they spoke about it in the locker room, how they're going to work hard, and there's no way they're losing this game. I'm sure they say that in every game. And it's easy to say that afterwards that, you know, that's what they said and that's what it ended up being. But it was very interesting to hear the King and also Alain Vigneault, the head coach of the Rangers, said the same thing. Lundqvist got, and I quote, Lundqvist got, and we got a few bounces. You need those. Maybe the luck is changing a bit. And also, I heard them say in the interviews, the hockey gods from above. So is it possible the Rangers can come back? It's possible. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. They are just too good. The Kings, Jonathan Quick's a great goaltender. The Kings are so well. You see how the Kings turn it on. They just thoroughly dominate the Rangers. And one more thing on the Rangers. Brad Richards, Rick Nash. Where are you? I mean, the Rangers win the cup with you guys doing nothing. Do you really deserve the ring? You haven't done a thing. You're the high-priced talent the Rangers came in, and you have not scored goals. That's what you're here for. And Brad Richards, who took the C when the Rangers tried Ryan McDonough from Martin St. Louis, okay, you might be a good leader, but the bottom line is you have not scored. And you won a Stanley Cup with Martin St. Louis in 2004 with Tampa Bay. So you've been there, but you haven't scored. Rick Nash, you haven't scored. And, you know, they were saying that Rick Nash, I think they were saying he led the finals, or at least the Rangers, in shots on goal. Well, you didn't put the puck in the net. So they can keep saying on TV that he's playing well, he's playing well. Your job is put the puck in the net, to bury the puck in the net, and you haven't. So if those guys if the Rangers come back and win the cup, which I don't think they will, those guys, do they really deserve it? They haven't done anything to deserve that. Again, let's not forget, we're sponsored by the Rampart Group, rampartinsurance.com. We appreciate that. And our new sponsor, 388 Restaurant and Lounge, catering on and off premises, 388 Willis Avenue in Roslyn, New York. I'm not done yet. I got more. So, you know, let's go to the Mets, who are just falling apart at the seam. Is it time to fire Terry Collins? You know, I like Terry Collins, but Terry, what are you doing? Finally got ejected the other day. I've been saying he should yell, scream, and do something. Finally got ejected the other day. They lost 3-1. Francisco Rodriguez, the X-Men, came in and saved the game. And after the game, he was like, I'd love to come back and play for the Mets. That's the closer who ended up in the Mets family room at Citi Field, ended up beaten up or punched out his girlfriend's father. I mean, that really wasn't a good thing for the Mets at that time, and the Mets ended up exiled him. But what is going on? Sandy Alderson gives the kiss of death when he says Terry Collins' job is safe. Sandy Alderson, is your job safe? Why is your job safe? What have you done? The team record since they both came in, 254 and 297. About 50 games under 500. Okay, this is their year. Sandy before the year said 90 games. Supposed to win 90 wins. Close to zero shot they got to win the 90 games. And I had no problem with him saying it. And I remember interviewing Bobby Valentine at the Ron Darling event, and Bobby said he didn't like that. I didn't agree with Bobby. What's wrong with your general manager telling you can win 90 wins? And Bobby's answer was, because they don't have the talent to win 90 wins. You never know in baseball. Fans are not showing up at Citi Field. And teammate plays much better on the road. Because the dimensions there aren't good for hitting. But it still doesn't mean you cannot win in Citi Field. Is it time to make a change? I've said it before. I like Wally Backman. Sitting at AAA, doing a very good job in Vegas for the Mets. Bring him in for half the year. If you don't want to commit to him for a whole year, you're scared, you're nervous, Sandy Alderson feels he's not his guy, no problem. Bring him in for the rest of the year. Let's see if he can bring some fire here. Staying on the topic of baseball, top 5 teams in baseball in payroll. The Dodgers, not playing that well. The Yankees, not playing that well. Dodgers at $235 million. The Yankees at $203 million. So both those teams hovering around 500, maybe a couple games over. The Phillies at $180 million, way below 500. The Red Sox, way below 500, $162 million. And then the Tigers at $162 million, leading the Central Division. So if you look at the top 5 payrolls in baseball, the Tigers are the team that are getting their money's worth. Top 5 records in baseball. San Francisco Giants, their payroll's less than that. Oakland Athletics, their payroll's way less than $100 million. The Brewers, less than $100 million. The Blue Jays are above $100 million, and the Nationals. So there you go. Spending all the money, does that mean, a third, a little bit more than a third into the season, that it's worth it to spend the money? I don't know. There's only 7 teams above 500. 13 are under 500. 10 teams that are 500 to win 5 games of the 500 mark. I don't know. What's going on in baseball? Can you buy the championships? I don't think so. And then, Kendrys Morales just gets signs last week. The guy's hitting .460, 3 doubles, 3 ribbies. Spring training? Do you really need spring training? I mean, think about that. Now, I know it's early. He's only been in about 5 games. We'll see what happens, but this guy's showing he hasn't played in 2 months. I'm sorry, hasn't played since last year. Hasn't had spring training, and then comes in the season in June when the season starts in April. Hasn't played in 2.5 months, and seeing Major League pitching, and the guy's just hitting the cover off the ball? I don't know. Stephen Drew, another one who just came in, he's batting 114. So you can argue with me that maybe he should have went to spring training. I don't know. A desperate move on the Red Sox because they were playing so well. I don't know. But Stephen Drew not playing well. Kendrick Morales, we'll get back to that. We'll follow him as the season goes on. And one more thing I want to talk about, again, there's so much to talk about, is Forbes came out with the guys who made the most money last year. Floyd Money Mayweather, with all his fights, $115 million he made. $115 million in 1 year. And he always fights in Vegas. I know the Barclays Center people are trying to get him over there, and he does not fight here. He can make more in Vegas. I guess the taxes as well, so he stays in Vegas. Cristiano Ronaldo, a soccer player, $80 million. LeBron, number 3 at $72 million. Lionel Messi, another soccer player at 64. Wow, top 5, 2 of them are soccer players. And then go to back to basketball. Kobe Bryant at $61.5 million. I want everyone to go to the website sportsbizwithld.com. Go to our Facebook, sportsbizwithld.com, and we're going to have a Ranger contest. By the way, I don't know if they can show my co-host today. Where's the Rangers? There's a jersey. I don't know if our great engineer in there, Mike, can get that photo. I'm sure he'll work on that. Again, it's 30 minutes already. I can't believe the show's over. I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Rampart Group Insurance. For all your insurance needs, go to rampartgroup.com. I want to thank 388, our new sponsor. And you can go to our Facebook page. There's a special question there. And if you can answer that question after you watch the show and go to Facebook, you win this gift certificate. I want to keep going down there. Keep it up right here. 388 Willis Avenue, and I'll put in your name, okay? To your name, and from will be from Sports Biz with LD. And I might even be there. You know, I hang out there, so I might even be there that night. I want to thank Daily Blue. Without them, we would not be here. Let's not forget the Big Daddy Golf Classic coming up on June 23rd, Monday, June 23rd. That's a week from this Monday. I tried to get one of the guys on there, Bob, who runs the event for Rich. He could not make it this week. And I also want to tell you about next week's guest is going to be a good buddy of mine who runs A1 Entertainment, Ticket Brokers. John Anthony is his name. He'll be on the show next week. He'll talk about the ticket game, meet and greets with players, and all that good stuff. I'm Larry Davis. Thanks for watching Sports Biz with LD. We'll see you next week.
Sports Biz is sponsored by the Rampart Insurance Group for all your insurance needs. Special thanks to mintpros.com. Brought to you by the Daily Blue Network. Sports fans, this is Sports Biz with LD.